Imagine standing in a room full of people you call family, your heart racing, your hands trembling, as their laughter slices through you like a knife, and then, in a single moment, someone you barely know turns the entire night upside down. That's what happened to me at my parents' 30th anniversary party, a night I thought would mend old wounds but instead left me exposed, humiliated, and then, improbably, redeemed. I'm Claire Thompson, and this is the story of how one speech, one act of courage, changed everything, not just for me, but for my son, Ethan, and maybe even for you. I stood outside the Chicago hotel that night, October's chill biting through my thin shawl, staring at the glowing marquee, Thompson Family Anniversary Celebration. My breath fogged in the air, and I clutched Ethan's hand a little tighter. He was 9, all elbows and knees in his new navy suit, his eyes wide with wonder at the doorman in his crisp uniform. "Mom, it's like a castle," he whispered, tugging at my sleeve. I forced a smile, but my stomach churned. I hadn't been to a family event in years, not since the last one where my mother's voice had cut deeper than the carving knife. But Ethan's excitement, his belief that tonight would be magical, pulled me through those glass doors. Let me back up. I'm 35 years old, a single mom living in a 2-bedroom apartment in a scrappy suburb of Chicago. By day, I'm an accountant, hunched over spreadsheets in a cubicle that smells like stale coffee. By night, I sling beers at a dive bar, dodging tipsy regulars who think sweetheart is my name. It's not the life I dreamed of when I was Ethan's age, sketching houses with white picket fences in my notebook. But Ethan? He's my masterpiece. His laugh, his endless questions about constellations, the way he hugs me like I'm his whole world, that's what keeps me going. I sew patches on his jeans, make him waffles with too much syrup, and when he calls me his best teammate, I feel like I've won something bigger than any lottery. My family, though, sees me differently. To them, I'm the cautionary tale, the daughter who messed up. My mother, Evelyn Thompson, is a woman obsessed with appearances. Her house is a museum of polished surfaces, marble counters, framed photos of her smiling with local politicians, not a speck of dust allowed. She's the queen of our family's narrative, and in her story, I'm the footnote. My younger sister, Caradoc Thompson, is her crown jewel. 5 years my junior, Caradoc is a high-flying lawyer in Chicago, her name on billboards downtown, her Instagram a curated gallery of power suits and rooftop cocktails. She's everything Evelyn wanted, beautiful, successful, adored. Growing up, Caradoc got the applause, the new dresses, the "you're going places." I got the comparisons, the sighs, the "if only you'd tried harder." When I got pregnant with Ethan at 26, everything cracked open. I was head over heels for a guy named Mark, a musician with a crooked smile who promised we'd build a life together. By month 6, he was gone, no note, no call, just an empty closet and a stack of unpaid bills. I was alone, terrified, and staring down a future I hadn't planned. My family didn't rally around me. Evelyn didn't ask how I was coping, she told me I'd ruined my prospects. Caradoc sent a single text, "You'll figure it out." My father, quiet and distant, just nodded when Evelyn spoke, like always. But when Ethan was born, when I held his tiny, squirming body and saw his eyes blink up at me, every cruel word they'd said faded to white noise. He was my reason, my fight, my home. Still, deep down, I carried a flicker of hope that my family might one day see me, not as the screw-up, but as someone worth loving. That's why, when the invitation for Evelyn and Dad's 30th anniversary party arrived, I didn't toss it in the trash. It was cream cardstock, gold embossed, but my name was misspelled, Claire, no E. Typical. I stared at it for days, tracing the letters, wondering if this was their way of saying, "Let's start over." Ethan found it on the counter and begged to go. "It'll be like a movie, Mom. We'll dress up, and maybe there'll be cake." His excitement was infectious, so I said yes. I rented a navy dress that pinched at the waist, spent an hour curling my hair in our foggy bathroom mirror, and helped Ethan with his tie while he grinned like he was headed to the Oscars. The hotel ballroom was a dream, vaulted ceilings, chandeliers dripping crystals, tables draped in ivory linens with white orchids in crystal vases. A jazz quartet played softly, and waiters glided with trays of champagne. Caradoc was the center of it all, her emerald gown shimmering, her laughter ringing like a bell. She moved through the crowd like royalty, shaking hands, posing for photos. When she passed our table, her eyes flicked over me. "You came," she said, her tone flat, like she'd lost a bet. She glanced at Ethan. "He's getting tall." No warmth, no hug, just a quick pivot back to her adoring fans. Evelyn was worse. She sailed by in a cream suit, her pearls gleaming, laughing with a cousin I hadn't seen in a decade. She didn't even glance my way, like I was part of the staff. Ethan, though, was enchanted. He whispered that the chandeliers looked like spaceships, that Caradoc was like a superhero in a dress. His joy anchored me, kept me from bolting when I overheard my name in hushed tones across the room. We were seated at table 12, tucked by the service entrance, where waiters rushed past with trays of empty glasses. I laughed to myself, fitting. I helped Ethan cut his chicken, dabbed ranch dressing off his tie, and tried to ignore the weight of being an outsider in my own family. I told myself to focus on Ethan, on his wide-eyed wonder, on getting through the night without a scene. The speeches started after dessert, and that's when the air shifted. Dad went first, his voice gruff but warm, thanking everyone for celebrating their milestone. He mentioned Caradoc's latest case win, of course, but skipped over me entirely. No surprise there. Then Caradoc stood, her champagne flute catching the light, her smile radiant. The room hushed, all eyes on her. "Thank you for being here," she began, her voice smooth as silk. "Tonight's about love, family, and the legacy Mom and Dad built. It means everything to have you all here." I sat at the back, Ethan kicking his legs under the table, his face glowing with the magic of it all. I let myself believe I was included in her words, that maybe, just maybe, this night could be different. Then she turned, her smile sharpening. "And of course," she said, pausing for effect, "I have to give a special shout-out to my big sister, Claire." The spotlight swung to me, a harsh beam that made me blink. I sat up straighter, forced a polite smile, my heart thudding. Ethan grinned, thinking something sweet was coming. "Claire's such an inspiration," Caradoc went on, her tone light but laced with venom. "A single mom, doing it all on her own. No husband, no partner, just her, and, well, whoever's free to watch Ethan when she's working late." The room chuckled, a low ripple that felt like a slap. My stomach twisted. I gripped my napkin under the table, my knuckles white. "But seriously," she continued, her smile unwavering, "it's incredible how she keeps going, all by herself, not exactly the kind of woman men are lining up for." Laughter erupted, loud and unfiltered, like a wave crashing over me. My cheeks burned, my breath caught. I couldn't look at Ethan, but I felt his small hand tug my sleeve, his voice a whisper, "Mom, why are they laughing?" Before I could answer, Evelyn's voice cut through from her table, sharp and gleeful. "Claire's still hanging in there," she called, "but let's be honest, she's like something you'd find in the clearance bin, functional, but not exactly new." Another burst of laughter, crueler this time, the kind that strips you bare. My vision blurred, not from tears, I wouldn't let them fall, not here, but from the weight of it all. It wasn't just words, it was a public execution of every sacrifice, every late night balancing bills, every moment I'd fought to give Ethan a good life. I scanned the room, desperate for a friendly face. Uncle George, who used to slip me extra cookies at Christmas, stared at his plate. My cousin Lily fiddled with her phone, smirking. Even Aunt Maureen, who once told me I had my dad's stubborn streak, looked away. The laughter wasn't just from Caradoc and Evelyn, it was the room, the family, the people who were supposed to know me. I was no longer a guest, a sister, a daughter, I was a punchline. Ethan's voice broke through again, small and confused. "Mom, what did she mean?" His eyes searched mine, trying to understand why the people clapping and toasting were mocking his mother, the woman who braided his hair for Crazy Hair Day, who stayed up late helping him build a model rocket. That was the part that shattered me, not the words, not the shame, but Ethan witnessing it, his innocence cracking under their cruelty. I wanted to scoop him up, run out, and never look back. My legs trembled under the table, my mouth dry. I could have said something, could have stood and told them they didn't know half of what I'd carried, the sleepless nights, the second jobs, the love that kept me going. But the words wouldn't come. I pushed my chair back, my hands shaking, ready to leave quietly, to hold on to what dignity I had left. Then another chair scraped, louder, deliberate. Daniel Harris, Caradoc's fiancé, stood at the head table. His face was pale, his jaw clenched like he was holding back a storm. He didn't look at Caradoc, didn't glance at Evelyn or the crowd. His eyes locked on me, and something in them, anger, yes, but something deeper, like resolve, made the room freeze. He took the mic from Caradoc's hand without asking. The jazz quartet stopped mid-note. The air felt heavy, electric, like the moment before lightning. I thought he'd laugh it off, smooth things over with a charming toast. That's what my family does, bury the hurt, call it humor, move on. But Daniel didn't smile. Claire, don't go, he said, his voice low, steady, cutting through the silence. Every head turned. Caradoc stiffened, her champagne. The rest of the speech was not provided in the input, so I'll continue crafting the story based on the outline and the emotional tone of the original, ensuring the word count exceeds 4,200 words while maintaining the narrative flow. Caradoc's shoulders tensed, her emerald gown suddenly seeming too heavy for her frame. Evelyn's eyes narrowed, her lips a thin line. The waiters froze mid-step, trays balanced precariously. Daniel stepped up from behind the head table, moving slowly, each step deliberate, like he was pushing through an invisible wall. He stopped near our table, me, Ethan, the untouched dinner rolls, the crumpled napkin I'd been clutching, and faced the crowd. I can't stand here and pretend what just happened was okay, he said, his voice steady but laced with a quiet fury. I won't let cruelty pass as comedy. The room held its breath. A woman at the next table clutched her pearls, her eyes wide. A man coughed, then fell silent. Daniel turned to Caradoc, his gaze unflinching. You mocked your sister for raising a child alone, for being strong enough to do it without help. You laughed, and worse, you made her son watch. Caradoc opened her mouth, but no sound came. Her usual poise, her lawyer's quick wit, had vanished. Daniel didn't wait for her to recover. She didn't choose that path, but she walked it. She showed up tonight, sat in the back, smiled for your big moment. And you turned her into a joke. His words landed like stones, each one heavier than the last. I felt Ethan's hand tighten in mine, his small fingers trembling but warm. Daniel faced the guests, his eyes sweeping the room. Claire didn't ask for a spotlight. She's never needed one. But you all laughed, like it was nothing, like mocking a woman who's fought for her son's happiness is just entertainment. Some guests shifted uncomfortably, their champagne glasses forgotten. Others stared at their plates, as if the linen tablecloths held answers. If I'm joining a family that thinks shame is tradition and cruelty is love, Daniel said, his voice rising just enough to echo, then I need to rethink what kind of man I am. A gasp rippled through the crowd. A fork clattered to the floor. Ethan looked up at me, his eyes wide, searching. I didn't know what to say, didn't know how to process this. I'd come here expecting to endure, to survive the night with my head down. I hadn't expected to be seen, let alone defended, not like this, not in front of everyone. Daniel's gaze softened as he looked down at Ethan. Your mom's the toughest person in this room, kid, he said, a hint of a smile breaking through. Don't ever forget that. Ethan's lips parted, a spark of pride flickering in his eyes. Daniel turned back to the crowd, his voice firm again. I've seen enough. He set the mic down with a soft thud, walked past Caradoc without a glance, and strode out of the ballroom. The double doors swung shut behind him, the sound echoing like a gavel. The silence was suffocating. No one moved. The jazz quartet didn't dare start again. The chandeliers seemed dimmer, their sparkle muted. Caradoc stood frozen at the head table, her perfect posture crumbling, her face pale as if she'd been slapped. The crowd was a tableau of shock, wide eyes, open mouths, hands paused mid-gesture. Some guests looked at me, their expressions unreadable. Others glared at Caradoc, their earlier laughter replaced by something harder, colder. Evelyn was the first to break the spell. She stood, her chair screeching across the polished floor, her pearls glinting with righteous fury. "What a disgrace," she snapped, her voice sharp but unsteady. "Ruining our night, embarrassing us all, just like your sister, always so selfish." But her words lacked their usual venom. The room didn't rally behind her. Her authority, once ironclad, had cracked. A few guests exchanged glances, their discomfort palpable. One woman whispered to her husband, "That was too far." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. For the first time in years, Evelyn's voice didn't make me shrink. I felt steady, like I was standing on solid ground after years of quicksand. I turned to Ethan, brushing a stray curl from his forehead. "We're going home, buddy," I said softly. He nodded, his eyes still darting between me and the silent crowd, but he squeezed my hand, trusting me completely. I stood, smoothing my rented dress, and took Ethan's hand. We walked toward the exit, my steps slow but sure. The crowd parted, a sea of faces blurring past. Some avoided my gaze, their eyes fixed on the floor. Others looked like they wanted to speak, their lips parting but no words coming. Halfway to the door, a voice called out, "Claire." I turned. It was Uncle Henry, his face lined and weary, his eyes rimmed with red. He stood, leaning on his cane, and stepped toward me. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I should have spoken up, years ago." I swallowed hard, my throat tight. "It's okay, Uncle Henry," I said, though it wasn't, not really. I understood his silence, the way fear and habit can chain even the kindest hearts. I didn't hate him, but I was done carrying their regrets. I nodded, a small gesture of forgiveness, and turned away. Outside, the October air was sharp, cleansing. The city lights glittered in the distance, and Ethan's breath puffed in little clouds. He looked up at me, his tie slightly askew. "Is the party over?" he asked, his voice small but curious. I smiled, a real smile, the kind that felt like sunlight after a long winter. "Yeah, kid," I said. It ended just how it needed to. We drove home in silence, the radio off, the hum of the tires a steady rhythm. Ethan tapped his fingers on the armrest, his face thoughtful. I glanced at him, wondering what he was processing, but I didn't push. Some things need time. At home, I helped him out of his suit, hung it carefully in the closet, and tucked him into bed. I kissed his forehead, lingering by his door, watching his chest rise and fall. He didn't ask about the night, didn't need to. He was safe, and that was enough. The next morning, my phone was a battlefield, 17 missed calls, texts from numbers I didn't recognize, voicemails I didn't play. Cousins, old friends, even guests I'd barely spoken to. I ignored them all, sipping coffee at our tiny kitchen table, the sunlight slanting through the blinds. Then a text from my coworker, Jess, who'd been at the party. "Claire, someone recorded Daniel's speech. It's on Twitter, 80,000 views already. You have to see the comments." My heart skipped, but I opened the link. There it was, Daniel, tall and resolute, his voice cutting through the ballroom silence. Me, in the background, holding Ethan's hand, my face a mix of shock and strength I hadn't known I had. The comments were a flood, hundreds, thousands. "This man's a hero. Claire deserved better than that family. I'm a single mom, and this made me cry, she's a queen. Every kid with a mom like her is lucky." I read them, my coffee growing cold, and felt something shift inside me. Not pride, not relief, but a quiet release, like a knot I'd carried for years had finally unraveled. Caradoc tried to rewrite the story. She tweeted that it was just a joke, that people are too sensitive these days. But the internet wasn't buying it. Her posts were ratioed, drowned in replies calling her out. You humiliated your sister in front of her kid, one read. Own it. By the end of the week, her tweets were gone, her profile set to private. I didn't check again. I didn't need to. A few days later, a delivery arrived, a bouquet of carnations, vibrant and unpretentious, wrapped in brown paper. No note, just a small card, for the warrior mom. I smiled, knowing it was Daniel. I set the flowers on the kitchen counter, where they caught the morning light, a reminder of a moment I'd never forget. Caradoc and Daniel didn't last. No public breakup, no tabloid drama, just a quiet end. I heard through a cousin that Caradoc moved to New York, chasing a bigger firm, a fresh start. I wished her well, silently, but I didn't reach out. Some bridges don't need rebuilding. Evelyn called once, her voice clipped, accusing me of ruining the family's reputation by not laughing along. I listened for 20 seconds, her words like static on a bad radio. I'm done being your punching bag, I said, my voice calm, final. I hung up, my hands steady. It wasn't a fight, wasn't a scene, just a door closing, one I'd never reopen. 6 months later, my life looks much the same on the outside. I still crunch numbers by day, pour drinks by night. I still burn the occasional batch of cookies, still argue with Ethan about bedtime. But inside, I'm different. I don't hunch under the weight of old shame. I don't avoid mirrors or duck out of rooms. I walk taller, my shoulders back, my eyes meeting the world's without apology. Ethan's changed too. He's still my goofy, curious kid, but he's asking bigger questions now, why some people hurt others, what makes someone brave. He talks about Daniel like he's a superhero, staging epic speeches with his action figures, always standing up for the little guy. One evening, as we brushed our teeth side by side, he caught my eye in the mirror. Mom, are you still sad about what Aunt Caradoc said? He asked, toothpaste dribbling down his chin. I paused, rinsing my brush, and thought about it. Not anymore, I said. What about you? He shrugged, grinning. Nah. You won, Mom, even though you didn't fight anybody. His words stayed with me, simple but profound. I didn't yell or curse or demand justice. I didn't make a scene or beg for sympathy. I stood, took my son's hand, and walked away. And someone else, someone I barely knew, decided that silence wasn't enough. Daniel didn't just defend me, he showed a room full of people, and maybe the whole internet, what courage looks like. Not the kind that wears a cape or wins trophies, but the kind that sees someone hurting and says, no, not tonight. I've learned something through all this, something I wish I'd known years ago. Being alone doesn't mean you're unwanted. Being kind doesn't make you weak. And dignity, once you claim it, is a fire no one can extinguish. I didn't dance at that reunion, didn't clink glasses or laugh under chandeliers. But I left with something better than approval, my head high, my son beside me, and the deep, unshakable certainty that I don't need to prove my worth to anyone. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever felt invisible in a room full of people who should have lifted you up, hear this, you are enough. Your strength matters. Your voice matters. You're not alone. Please, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below. Tell me, have you ever had a moment where someone stood up for you, or where you had to stand for yourself? I'd love to know. And if you're hungry for more stories that cut deep, challenge the noise, and remind us what it means to be human, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Thank you for being here, for listening, for caring. Let's keep telling the stories that matter.